Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to take a little break from turntables and get back to amplifiers. Today we are reviewing another Class D amplifier, one that sort of showed up out of the blue, and I'm really glad that it did. Of course, that means we are talking about XTZ Sounds Edge A2-300. Let's take a look. So the XTZ Sound Edge A2-300 amplifier, which we're just going to call the Edge for the remainder of this review because it's such a cumbersome name, is a Class D amplifier made by XTZ Sound, which is an internet direct company based out of Europe. It is a Class D amplifier which uses ICE power modules. It uses the 300AS1 or the 300A1 modules to be exact. You can go ahead and Google those, or I'll link to them in the description below if you want the absolute complete specifications on those particular amp modules. Suffice to say that it churns out 300 watts into 4 ohms, which makes me think that it's going to be around 150 watts into 8 ohms. It is switchable into mono, meaning that it is a stereo amplifier, but with the flip of a switch, it can become a mono amplifier, which would require you to use 2 in order to drive a stereo pair of loudspeakers. It features adjustable gain as well as an auto on-off or auto sensing switch, meaning you can leave it in auto. When it senses a signal, it will power up, and when the signal drops out, it will automatically put itself into standby mode, which is supremely cool and a very nice kind of feature, which is something you don't find on a lot of amplifiers, especially amplifiers at this price point. And of course, in bringing up price point, let's talk about its price. Well, the Edge amplifier retails for $500. And that $500 includes shipping as well as a 30-day risk-free trial. Really what you're getting for $500 is a compact stereo 300 watt per channel into 4 ohms Class D amplifier, which sources its amplifier topology from a widely available and widely popular brand in ICE power, making it very reliable and something that you can put your trust and faith in for the long haul. So how does it sound? Well, I'm not going to lie to you and say that the Edge amp sounds like no other ICE powered amplifier that I've ever heard. And that's okay, because on a whole, I really like ICE powered amplifiers, and a lot of people do, and that's why that platform is so popular. So I'm not going to say that the Edge is unlike any ICE power amp you've ever heard. That is to say, though, that because it is like other ICE amps out there, maybe not exactly the same, but others like it, if you are a fan of this topology, if you are a fan of the ICE platform, chances are you are going to like the Edge amplifier a lot. Because it is a Class D design, all of the traits and hallmarks of Class D are present with the Edge amplifier. Of course, that means I'm talking about speed, efficiency, and a largely neutral character. The sound on a whole from the Edge amplifier is very clean, very clear, and effortless. And just like kind of like electric cars, you know, when you just step on the accelerator, you go. You're never feeling like you're waiting for anything to spool up, kick in, or needing copious amounts of volume in order for something to kind of, you know, perk up and feel alive. With Class D amplification, just like with, say, electric cars, the response to every input you make, in this instance, say volume, you're immediately greeted to results. And so there's not really any sort of kind of butter zone where it's like, oh yeah, you know, you have to turn this one up just a little bit, but once you do, it comes alive. It sounds good at low volumes, it sounds good at moderate volumes, and it sounds really good at high volumes. It's fast in the attack, and like I said, there's virtually no coloration. So if you are looking for an amp as a tone control, i.e. you're looking for it to impart a little bit of sparkle or a little bit of romanticism in the mid-range, or you want it to have copious amounts of bass, any Class D amp, especially the Edge, is not going to do that for you. Like I said, it is largely neutral in its overall tone and character. The high frequencies are airy and articulate and extended, but they do seem to lack that little bit of glassiness or maybe that high frequency sparkle. And I find that those types of traits are more common with Class A, B, Class A, or maybe even tube-based designs. So you're not going to find that here. What you are going to find is much more of a neutral demeanor. Like I said, airy, extended, and full of detail, but lacking that little bit of edge at the top end, which I like. I don't mind because it's a little bit more well suited for a wider range of listening tastes and listening material, in my humble opinion. The mid-range, likewise, is extremely neutral. Some people may see it as a little bit on the lighter side. I disagree. I think there are definitely amps out there, even Class D amps, that over accentuate the mid-range or are lighter in the mid-range than this, but I do consider the ICE modules found inside the Edge amp to be largely neutral, which means that all of the inherent properties of vocalists, whether you singer-songwriter or an actor or actress on screen, their natural timbre is going to remain intact. There's not going to be a lot of coloration on behalf of the amplifier, and that's a very good thing. Bass is taut, bass is fast, bass has tremendous grip and great detail. There are amplifiers that are going to potentially draw a little bit more weight out of your loudspeakers, maybe give them just a little bit more grunt, but anything around say 35 to 45 hertz range, which is where a lot of people actually respond best to bass. That's the bass that you feel, that's the bass that you refer to as having, impact, and not so much the stuff that churns your bowels. I think you're going to find that the Edge amp has all of the grip and control that your loudspeakers are going to require, and therefore you're going to be treated to a very, very nice, robust, and weighty presentation on a whole. The sound itself is definitely lacking color, is leaning ever so slightly more towards neutral, and is very, very nimble and quick on the uptick. Soundstage, again, because of the detail, because of that neutrality, that lack of color, Soundstage is, as you would expect it, to be very well appointed, very detailed and nuanced. But again, because maybe certain amplifier topologies will dig a little bit lower or deeper with a little bit more authority, or maybe their top end has that little extra sparkle, you may think that the Edge has a soundstage that lacks that last 1% of focus, or maybe that last 1 or 2% of grounding. I myself personally don't think that, but if you are familiar with tube amps, you've had a lot of experience with that, or some super, super high-end amps, let's talk Krell or Mark Levinson in the lower mid-bass to bass range, yes, the Edge is going to come up just a little bit short there. But on a whole, again, it's supremely, supremely satisfying. So what don't I like about the Edge amp? Well, I'm going to get to that, but first we got to pay some bills, so stick around after the break. So what don't I like about the Edge amp? Well, to be perfectly honest, not much. There is an awful lot about the Edge amplifier that checks the boxes for me. That being said, some people may or may not complain about its relatively plain Jane styling. The fit and finish, the construction, the build quality of the amp is very robust. It's made from solid aluminum, and the top plate, which is all one singular piece, is very thick, and like I said, it's made of a quality material, but the finish is prone to showing off fingerprints. Not that anyone goes around touching their amps, but it is prone to showing dust and fingerprints, especially if you have wet or greasy hands. Those smudges are very, very difficult to get off. But again, we don't go around touching our amps, handling our amps. So this, once it's installed, I don't see really a reason to have to fuss with the Edge all that much. But because of its size, because of its weight, if you use super thick cables, be it interconnects or speaker cables, it is possible, depending on your shelving system, the weight of the cables themselves, and where you place the amp, it is possible for this thing not to fully sit level, because it just lacks the heft needed to combat those forces. But again, if you're using moderately priced cables, or you take your time and set it up and place it in your rack correctly, this is a non-issue. But I did notice that it is possible to get this thing to tilt or shift around if you weight it too much in the rear with heavy cables. Another thing to point out, I know earlier in this review I did mention that it does have an adjustable gain control. This doesn't necessarily make the Edge an integrated amplifier. I suppose if you had but one source, you could essentially ride this very small gain control kind of like a volume control, or kind of, you know, in order to treat the Edge like an integrated amp. But honestly, I do not recommend it. That gain is there to match the Edge to, say, other amplifiers in your system or other components in your system that may or may not be exact matches for the Edge. I personally don't think that the Edge needed this feature, but it is nice that it is there. Just don't think that it means that the Edge can be an integrated amplifier, because that's not really its intention. You definitely should have either a preamp or a source component with a variable output in terms of volume. And this can be your computer, this can be a Chromecast audio or some type of streaming device. If your DAC has a volume pot or a variable volume built in and it's kind of a DAC preamp, you can get away with that. Obviously, preamps and processors and even receivers with preamp outs are all viable. But in terms of like a CD player or a turntable with no kind of preamp in between, that's not what this is for, and don't think that that's how you can use it. In terms of comparisons, obviously around the $500 mark, there are some amps that immediately spring to mind, amps that I've had some experience with over the years. And the first one is the Emotiva A2-300. Now this is, I believe, a $300 or $400 Class AB stereo amplifier that is 150 watts into 8 ohms, 300 watts into 4 roughly. And it's an amazing sounding amplifier, to be perfectly frank. At its price point for what it is, it sounds way better than it has any right to. And I would consider it, despite it not being a Class D amplifier itself, I would consider the A2-300 to be a worthy competitor to the Edge. I personally do think the Edge is a little bit superior. I do think it sounds just a little bit better, but again, understand I am biased towards Class D based amplifiers. I love them. They are my personal choice when talking about amplifiers at this price point. It's not until we start stepping up into amplifiers costing thousands upon thousands of dollars do I then kind of begin to really like Class A or AB designs. But at this price point, I do think the Edge is a little bit better than the A2-300, but the A2-300 is definitely worth a look, and it saves you, $100. And it's from a company that is also very well known in the game, Emotiva. Of course, I have to bring up another Emotiva amplifier, which is the PA1, which is Emotiva's ICE-powered mono amplifier. Yes, it is mono, so you are going to need two of them in order to power a pair of stereo loudspeakers, but like the Edge, it uses a similar ICE module. I do not believe it is the same one, but the two should be very comparable in sound, but because you do need to purchase two PA1s, the price of that package straight away is a little bit more than the Edge itself. Lastly, the question that's probably on everyone's mind watching this, especially if you are a fan of this channel, is how does the Edge compare to my beloved Crown XLS DriveCore 2 amplifiers? Well, to be perfectly honest, you can get the Crown XLS DriveCore 2 amplifiers for a little bit less than what the Edge retails for. This is true, and you can get the Crown XLS DriveCore amplifiers in a wide variety of power ratings, all of which are supremely affordable for the type of power that you are buying. The Edge amp is easier to integrate into any consumer-based system. It is easier to live with day to day, and because of its compact size, it fits in more places and stays cool without the need of potentially internal fans having to kick on, which is why at this price point, can you get a little bit more power or the same power for cheap with the Crown? Yes, absolutely. But if you do not want to fuss with the Crown, or you're worried the Crown may not be the right match for your system, This is now my new budget reference. The Edge amp from XTZ Sound at $500 delivered with a 30-day trial is my new budget reference amp. And honestly, in my travels, I would say that you would probably have to spend 3 or 4 times more than its asking price in order to outright best it. That is to say, be able to sit down and subjectively go, oh, I can hear a difference, which is why it is now my new budget reference, and I do consider it to be one of the easiest amplifiers to live with day to day and highly recommend it. So there you have it. That is my review of XTZ Sound's Edge Class D stereo amplifier. What did you guys think? Is this an amplifier that you even knew about? Is this one that you've had your eye on and have been waiting for a review to come out? Or do you think Class D stands for the devil and that Class A, B, and Class A amps are the only true amps to be considered in any hi-fi system? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you liked this review, please do like, thumbs up, and subscribe. And if, again, you disliked it, well, you know where that other button is. Other than that, I thank you guys so very much for watching each and every one of these videos. I do enjoy bringing them to you each and every week. So until next time, remember, the only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.